Hi there, today we're going to have a look at Jekyll and Hyde, which is of course one of the options that you have for Scottish text at both National 5 and higher level in fact, but this video is going to focus on the final question answering technique at National 5 level. Now clearly some of the things that I'm going to say will have some relevance if you're studying this text for higher, but we are going to focus specifically on National 5 in this video. This is the first part of two videos that I'll put up for Jekyll and Hyde Scottish text. In this video we'll look at some of perhaps the likely questions that you might face in this part of the paper. We'll look at an answering structure that you should follow, and then I'll show you a sample answer that you can have a look so you can see how this might work in practice for you in the exam. Okay, so let's dive in. The first thing to say is that in 2019 we are unable to look to a whole bank of past papers for Jekyll and Hyde. There is one specimen paper on the SQA website for Jekyll and Hyde, but Jekyll and Hyde is a new text in 2019, so unlike some of the other texts that have been around for a long time on the syllabus, this is new this year, and so rather than looking to lots of past papers and seeing the sorts of things that come up, what I thought might be a good idea was to just look at all the prose options in the Scottish text National 5 papers, pull them all out and then do a little bit of analysis of them to see what is likely to come up for Jekyll and Hyde. And when these are all the questions here, and when I pulled them out and had a good look at them and sorted them into different categories, the most popular question for the final 8-marker question in the Scottish text prose options was a closed single character question. And here's a couple of examples of what I mean by that. So discuss how Durer is portrayed in this extract and elsewhere in the novel. Durer is a character in The Cone Gatherers, and you're asked to focus specifically on a character, on a character that you're given. You're not allowed to just talk about any character you like or another aspect of the text. You're given the character. So that's what I mean by a closed, and obviously it's just one character that you're asked to focus on. So it's a closed single character question. That is the most popular question that the SQA ask in prose options in the Scottish text paper. Another example of this would be discuss one aspect of Gideon Mac's character which features in this extract and is developed elsewhere in the novel. So again, you're given the character to focus on, Gideon Mac, and you have to follow that through if you're going to get the marks. But there are other kinds of questions that are asked fairly regularly. In fact, this kind of list of categories of question is in descending order. So closed theme questions are the second most popular questions, and other techniques, which we'll get to in a second, is the kind of rarest question at National 5 prose questions at Scottish text. So closed theme questions can often be asked, referring to this extract and elsewhere in the novel, show how the theme of deception is explored. So again, you're given a theme, just like in a closed character, you're given a character. In a closed theme, you're given a theme. Here the theme is deception, and you have to follow that through if you want to get the marks. Character relationship questions come up. With reference to this extract and elsewhere in the novel, discuss the development of David and Alan's relationship. So there you're being asked about the relationship between two characters, which is, I suppose, possible for Jekyll and Hyde. I would imagine that would be one of the kind of harder questions that you could be asked, but I suppose you could be asked about the relationship between Jekyll and Utterson, for example. Open theme questions are also asked fairly regularly, with reference to this extract and elsewhere in the novel, show how an important theme is developed. So the big difference between the open theme and the closed theme questions is that in the open theme, you're just asked to write about a theme, and you're allowed to come up with the theme that you want to write about. whereas in the closed theme you're obviously given a theme to focus on. And that's true for open character questions as well. By referring to this extract and elsewhere in the novel, show how one interesting character is created. You're not limited to a character that you have to write about. You can write about any character that you choose, provided that they appear in the given extract and then obviously elsewhere in the novel. And last but not least, other techniques. Now this is slightly unusual because all of the questions up until this point have either been asking you to refer to character or theme, but here's just put this under the other techniques. By referring to this extract and to elsewhere in the novel, show how setting is an important feature. I think there's a question that I saw also that was about tension, how tension is an important feature of the novel. So these are unusual. They don't come up often, but they do occasionally come up, and they make a slightly different demand on you. And also, so it'd be sensible to prepare for this kind of question too. Okay, so I'm going to show you now the answer structure that you should follow for this 8-mark question. Now, it's really important that you learn this answer structure and that you apply it in the pressure of the exam room, because it is not obvious, I think, when you read the question that you're given that this is how you're supposed to answer it. But if you don't follow this answer structure, it is highly unlikely that you will get all the marks that are available. So let me take you through this carefully, and I would urge you to practice this, commit it to memory, and use it in your exam. The first 2 marks of the 8 marks are available for what's known as commonality. Now, there are 2 marks available for this, but only 2 marks available for this. So it's one of these situations where you don't want to miss it out, but nor do you want to do too much, because obviously you have other demands on your time in the middle of a critical reading paper, and you want to be as succinct and to the point as possible. So I have changed my thinking on commonality over the last 18 months. And kind of in line with some conversations I've had with other teachers and kind of work that I've done with the SQA. And I think in some ways the easiest way to think about it is, where does the key idea of the question appear in the given extract? You don't have to quote, you shouldn't quote at this point in your answer, but just describe a place where it appears in the extract that you're given. That would get you 1 mark. And then for another mark, where does this key idea appear elsewhere in the novella? That would get you a 2nd mark. Okay, so the next 2 marks of the 8 marks are available for your reference to the given extract. Now, it's important to note that there are only 2 marks available for answers that draw from the passage that you have in front of you. There is no point in quoting 3 or 4 things from the extract that's in front of you, because there is actually only 1 mark available, as you'll see here, for a relevant reference to the text that you have in front of you. So one relevant quote will get you 1 mark, and then 1 appropriate comment on that quote will get you the 2nd mark that's available for the given extract. What do we mean by an appropriate comment? Well, we mean that you are showing how this quote carries the idea that you've been asked to look at in the question. So let's say the question is about an interesting theme. So how does this quote that you have selected help us to understand the interesting theme? That's really what that appropriate comment description means. So that's 4 out of the 8 marks. The second 4 marks set of 4 marks are available for work on the rest of the novella. So this is the part that really draws on your revision. And what you're looking to do really is, on 2 occasions, refer to somewhere else in the novella, either by a quote or a kind of specific description, and then provide an appropriate comment for each of your quotes. And if you do that twice, 2 for each, 4 marks for this set part, and that gives you a total of 8 marks. Okay, so perhaps the best thing to do is just to actually show you an example of this in practice. So this is a kind of question that I've set for myself, and this is the extract that I've pulled out for myself from Jekyll and Hyde. So if you wanted to read this, to follow this maybe a little bit better, then maybe pause the video now and have a look at this passage. Okay, so sample answer for the 8 marker. First thing I want you to notice is that the key phrase in this question that we've been given is good versus evil. By referring to this extract and elsewhere in the novel, show how the theme of good versus evil is explored. So good versus evil is what we have to be focusing all our answers on. I then want you to notice that the first thing I write down in my answer is this word commonality. I think it's a really smart idea to set out your answer properly, to signal to the marker that you know what you're doing, and to make it easy for them to award you the marks. So I always encourage my candidates to start their answer with the word commonality, the heading commonality. And then I encourage them to start their first bullet point with this phrase in the given extract, and then their second bullet point with this phrase elsewhere in the novella. Because remember, what we're thinking of here is how does good versus evil appear in the given extract, and how does good versus evil appear elsewhere in the novella. And these little phrases just help us to stay on track. So in the given extract, the theme of good versus evil is explored through the house of Dr. Jekyll, with the attractive main entrance representing the public image of goodness, and the dilapidated side entrance representing hidden evil lurking within. Notice that I have used the phrase good versus evil that was in the question. It's the key phrase, and that again just keeps me on track for my answer. Elsewhere in the novella, from my second bullet point, the theme of good versus evil is explored through the physical description of the characters, with the attractive appearance of Jekyll suggesting his good reputation and the horrible face of Hyde showing the evil inside human beings. Again, notice that I have used my phrase good versus evil to stay on track. Okay, so now looking ahead to the next 2 marks. So this is the given extract. Again, notice please that we are going to be wanting to use this key phrase, good versus evil. And we are wanting to put a nice heading to make it easy for our marker, given extract. Notice also that I'm bulleting my response. So the quote that I've picked out is troglodytic, and here's my little description. Suggests that evil is something primitive, while goodness is associated with civility and manners. Okay, so I've not actually used good versus evil, but I've referred to evil and I've referred to goodness to just make sure that I'm on track. And now for the final 4 marks that are available in this 8 marker question. Again, please notice that we're going to be focused on good versus evil. That's going to be the key words in the question. And also notice that I've got a little heading elsewhere in the novella. And then I've got 2 pairs of responses, 1 quote, 1 comment, 1 quote, 1 comment. And you'll see again, man is not truly one but truly two is my quote from somewhere else in the novel. I think that's a really useful quote, by the way, to learn for this part of the paper, because it's just useful for so many different responses. It can be useful for theme, for character, for all kinds of different things. But expresses the central idea of the struggle between good and evil. There's my key phrase that takes place within each human being. And then my next quote is a pious work which Jekyll had annotated with his own hand with startling blasphemies. This book represents the dual nature of humanity and the war within each person between good and evil. There's my key phrase that keeps me on track with the question. Okay, that's the first part of the video. A second part of the video is coming up next.